Morning, I should good afternoon now. I've been paying a lot of attention to the Vatican of late. Not to do with any scandals or anything like that. Just reading the zeitgeist of what the Holy See is up to at the moment. And observing how lay Catholics are behaving or relating to their religion. I live in a country that's predominantly Catholic by in name, but so few people go to church, and the only connection people have to it is like cultural or traditional things like weddings, first holy communions, baptisms, that kind of thing. Other than that, they don't really believe in it. Well, they might believe in a God, but they don't believe in, observing the Catholic end of it. That's a lot don't, most don't. Older folks would. Now, but even they're not, lots of them don't either now. Mainly to do with the sex scandals in the Catholic Church in Ireland had a lot to do with it. But there seems to be an assumption that I've lived with all my life is that the church must change. Do you hear this all the time? You hear about priests who leave and they say, "Oh, the church must change. They must allow priests to marry and have children. They must allow women to be ordained. The church must change." You hear this all the time. And it never changes that way. They never really change canon law. They never do. The edicts remain the same. But the church changes constantly. One of the misconceptions that people have is that the Catholic Church is backward. It's somehow backward and archaic. That could not be further from the truth. They are on the cutting edge of science, the internet, you name it, technology. They're way up there. They know exactly what's going on in the world and what's doing in the world. They have the top professors, universities, scientists. They have it all. They know what's going on in world finance. The Jesuits know what's going on through world politics. They're anything but backward. Just because you don't agree with how they're at right there, how they deal with things like, female priests and letting ordained priests get married, and their attitudes towards homosexuals and stuff, which is common in all the Abrahamic religions, uh, doesn't mean that they should change that for you. You see, this is an assumption that people make. I don't like it, we don't like it, you have to change. The Vatican has been around for about, since the 300 AD, 300, 400 AD, as it presently stands now. And it is the Roman Empire. This is why I'm called a Roman Catholic by Protestants here. It is the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire moved away from being a military and a commercial enterprise, political enterprise, into being a religious empire, but it was really all about control and espionage and things like that. And it that the Vatican only became an independent state when Mussolini came to power in the 1920s and 30s. And that was to put it in the same position as Washington, D.C., or the City of London, its own thing. It had its own laws and everything like that. Now, people say it doesn't, it does change. And what I've noticed a lot in recent times is, and I'm making a prediction now, that the only reason Catholics are Christians is because the Vatican is Christian, is because that what became the predominant religion in Europe. If the Ottomans had have conquered Europe, you would have seen the Vatican become Islam. And the same popes and cardinals and bishops would have all converted to Islam. Right? That's what would happen. They don't care about the religious part of it. That has nothing to do with it. That is just purely administration and totally fleeting concepts of religion and spirituality. In a minute, they would become Islamic if they thought it would keep them in power, and they will. And this is what's happening. I'm seeing it all over their website. With this new president, Pope Jesuit Francis, they're putting on a happy, trippy, smiley face, and the liberal media thinks he's wonderful because he says, to be against climate change is to be against God. He's practically filleting every Muslim he sees, and it's all about the change, the switch over. Now, this began a few years ago when the previous Pope Benedict released some doves on a World Peace Day in St. Peter's Square, and they were torn to bits by ravens. I've written about it, you know all about it, I've spoken about it over the years. That was a sign from the gods. A sign from the gods that Europe was becoming pagan again, that the old gods were back. And that's why your man Benedict was slowly sneaked out of the Vatican and replaced quietly with not much ceremony by this Jesuit Francis. Now the Vatican can't become pagan because they always move forward, they never move back. Now prior to Christianity, they were pagan, they were classical Roman pagans. They never moved back. That was them being told, and they're as superstitious as we are. They're as able to understand magic as we are. That was them realizing that they were being told by the forces of the cosmos, whatever you want to call it, God, whatever, that the game was up. It was over. When those ravens ripped those, or crows ripped those doves to bits over over the mass. They were released from the Pope's hands, remember. You just don't get more significant than that. Also because paganism has no organized central structure, and we're not people of the books, there's nothing in it for a massive bureaucracy like the Vatican. So they have to find another monotheistic religion to replace Catholicism that will allow them to keep their heavily centralized bureaucratic structure and power system in control. And the answer to that is Islam. This is why the Pope and the Vatican are encouraging massive Islamic immigration into Europe. This is why every day it seems that they're mollycoddling up against Muslims. This is why they say things like Islam and Christianity are the same church. We're just two brothers in the same family, this kind of thing. What will happen is that millions of people, and like you guys and my work and people like us, have returned to our Indo-European paganism, or in my case, the chaos paganism idea that I've developed for myself. And if someone wants to jump on that they're welcome to take it and modify them any way they want themselves. But we will never be the majority, and we'll never want control, because by its very nature, being a pagan, it's against centralized thinking, centralized control. We want nothing, just nature. Once we have access to nature and freedom and natural law, we're happy. We don't need rules, we don't need a rule book. We're not people of the book or of books like the other three are. And that's what's going to happen. Islam is going to take over the Vatican, and it will be the main religion for the meat golems of Europe and the world. They'll be all, it doesn't take long. The Catholics, they might protest and everything, but they won't last long. They'll be replaced by a generation, and part of this is the distortion and the destruction of the psyche. If you've read any books on brainwashing, before you can get, say those U.S. servicemen that were captured in Korea, in the Korean War, and then were brought back to America, and there they were going on, giving up large about how communism is great and everything, and America is evil, and Americans were shocked. How you do that is you destroy the psyche of someone first, and then you get them to believe what you want them to believe. This is what happens. Currently, there's a process through all the things like tampons being labeled for men, children not knowing what gender they are, drag queens being brought into schools, children being sexualized at an early age. Desmond is amazing, and all this kind of thing. What that is the destruction and explosion and the annihilation of the present consciousness of the young people of today, to the point where they've been gaslighted to know they don't know what gender they are, they don't know what bathroom to use, they don't know anything. They think they're boys, thinks they can buy tampons, and so on and so forth. Minds completely ravaged. They don't know anything. They can't behave themselves. They're being crashed. The Western consciousness and software is being crashed. And when it's at its lowest ebb, then you will see the Vatican start to incorporate some kind of council with Islam. And that will become the new religion of the West. A kind of a softer Islam. An Islam plus. And that will take over, and the power structures behind the Vatican will become Islamic. The rest of Europe will become pagan like us, but that's what's happening. I've been reading it. I've been reading the Vatican's website. They have a very interesting website when you can start reading into it and looking at it. I've been reading their press releases. They are absolutely obsessed with Islam, while at the same time playing up the death cult of climate change and all this other stuff, and talking about diversity and everything. They are crashing the software of the Western consciousness in tandem with the globalists. And that's what they're looking for. They want to be, the Vatican has so much power like you would not believe. And they want to stay in power. And they see their power as Islam.